Okay. Amr Lahem. So he says to them. So we are now on Mishnah 13, second parak, Mishnah 13. Amr Lahem. He says to his 5 students, Tzu'u u'ru'u. Go out and see. Ezohi derech tova. Right? Go and see the derech tova, the good path. There's actually many versions of this Mishnah that, again, say derech yeshara. So there's 2 different versions of this Mishnah. It's derech tova, derech yeshara. But we'll use this for now. Derech tova, sheyadabeg bo, that a person should cling to and hang on to. Ha'odom. Right? Tzu u'ru'u ezahi derech tova sheyadabeg bo ha'odom. So before we get to the answer, let's go back to the question. The first Mishnah of this parak says, right, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the redactor of the Mishnah, says, Ezohi derech yeshara sheyarbor lo ha'odom. So Rabbi says, Ezohi derech yeshara, which is the straight path, right, sheyarbor lo ha'odom, that a person should choose for himself. We talked a few weeks ago about this idea of selecting your path in life, right? So here he says, doesn't use sheyabor, doesn't use the word choose, it says yeshadabe, cling to. So here's the differences. First, go out and see. Rav Yehuda HaNasi is talking philosophically. Deep, intellectual, moral, philosophical question. What's the responsibility for a person to choose the nature of his path through life? Ezu derech yeshara. Right? What's the straight path? You want a path that's straight, right? Honest. We're not going to do it again because we just did it a few Mishnayot ago, right? Sheyabor, that a person should select for himself. You're looking at all the paths available in life, and you should select one. Right? This one doesn't say that. This says sheyadabek, hang on to, cling on to, and he says go out and see. It's not a philosophical thing. He says, listen, the world is falling apart. I'm going to send my students and my kids to go live in a world. Right? They're going to find themselves living in villages and towns and cities. And right? How does a Jewish person, I don't mean a philosophical, deep philosophical, choose your path through life. How are you going to find a path through life that's good? What should you hang on to? What's your lifeline? Right? You're living in 21st century America in a culture that's crazy. What are you going to hang on to? What are you going to hold on to that's going to keep you safe? What's the good path? What do you need? Right? Purely practical. And he doesn't say intellectually think about it. He says, get out of here, go out in the world, and look around and see. Practical question. What is it that a person needs to make sure that he's not going to blow it? We don't have Nuvu anymore. We don't have Rebbeim. We don't have our own country. How are you going to keep your kids from falling off the derech? How are you going to keep yourself from disappearing into American culture and becoming something you don't want to be? How are you going to keep this from eating your kids alive? Go out and see. So here it is, right? Here's the practical advice. How do I keep my kids from getting eaten? How do I keep myself from getting eaten alive? Go out and see, because it's cling to. He says, what are you going to hang on to for dear life to make sure that you get from here to there? Right? Guy gets thrown into the river, is floating away in the ocean. You grab onto a piece of flotsam and what are you going to cling to? So here he is. Amar lahem. He says to them, go out and see. Ezohi derech tova sheyadabeg bo ha'odom. What's the good thing, the good path that a person should hang on to? So Eliezer says, ayin tova. Rabbi Yeshua says, chaver tov, a good friend. Rabbi Yossi, the chassid, says, shachen tov, a good neighbor, a good influence. Rav Shimon Omer says, haroa et hanolad, be the kind of person who sees the consequences of his actions. And Rabbi Lazar says, a leiv tov, a good heart. So the next mission is going to flip this around. He's going to say, Amar lahem, go. This says to them, go out and see, ezu derech ra, she'it rachik mimenu ha'odom. Go see which is the evil path, the evil thing that a person needs to stay away from. So he's going to ask him 2 questions. What's the good thing in the world, right? You want to survive. What's the most important thing to hang on to? And he also asks, what's the most important thing to stay away from? Okay? So we'll look at them together. Ayin Tov versus Ayin Ro'ah. Right? Eliezer says it's your attitude towards life. What's an Ayin Hara? What's Ayin Ro'ah versus Ayin Tova? So Ayin Ro'ah, an evil eye, means you see everything is bad. Everything is just painful and it stinks, and it's like whatever happens, you just see the nastiness in it. Right? You see what's dirty, you see what's painful. Or worse, you look at the world, Ayin Hara means, colloquially, we use that for jealousy. Right? Ayin Hara we use for jealousy. Why? What's jealousy? What's an Ayin Hara? Ayin Hara is I look at the world and I say, God is stupid, and he gave you my car. I should have that car. God is stupid. He gave you my job. That's why I hate you. Because you have my wife or my house or my job or my money or my good fortune. Right? And I see my life as stinky. Why do I have to suffer like this? Why does this have to be why me? Right? Ayin Ro'ah is a person who looks at his world, instead of seeing the bracha and seeing his life as good, he sees his life as bad. And why is life bad? Life is bad because God is stupid. We'll see in a future Mishnah. We'll see actually pretty soon. Right, when it talks about destroying a person out of this world, one of the things it mentions is Ayin Hara. Right, we think Ayin Hara is jealousy, destroys your relationship with people. Ayin Hara destroys your relationship with God. Because Ayin Hara is, what jealousy is, you have my stuff. God runs the world, he must have given you my stuff. Either he's not powerful enough to have given me my stuff, or he's not smart enough to have given me my stuff. But in either case, you have my stuff. That's Ayin Hara. Right? Elazar says, Ayin Ro'ah, an evil eye. If you're the kind of person who sees things as yucky, everything, you always see the bad in everything, you're always uncomfortable with everything, you're always critical of everything, no matter what they say. A person comes home with something and you look at it and you say, the corner is bent. Right? And Ayin Tova is a person who looks at the world and says, the world's a good place. You know what? This whole cancer thing, it's reminded me very strongly, the world's a good place. Right? When you're not sure how much you're going to hang on to, all of a sudden, it's like, what? It's a nice place. Everything is nice. I like smog. I like air I can see. It's nice, right? Air that you can taste, right? There's something good about it, right? Life is good. Everything is good. But it's hard to see it. It's hard to look at things and see good in them. But he says that's the most important thing. If you want to destroy yourself, if you want to drive yourself away from God, if you want to drive yourself away from Torah, it's a very simple path, he says. Look at things as bad. If you look at it and say, my life is bad, right? Why did this happen to me? Pick an event in your life that if it hadn't happened, you would never have had the opportunity to meet that other person and start a different life. Right? That was bad. But you know what? It's actually good. Right? But if you look at your life and you see your life as bad, if you think God is stupid, you can't connect to him. He can't connect to you. He says if you want to be connected to God, number one, we all have trouble. Right? There's no one in this room who doesn't have hard things in their life. Things don't always go the way you want them. You're not always on the path you thought you were going to be on. But you have to learn, he says, you want to be connected to God. The only thing you have to do is learn to look at the world as good. If you look at the world as good, you will stay connected. If you look at the world as bad, you will be lost. That's his advice. It's not a big, deep philosophical concept. One simple tool. Look at it as good, you're connected to God. Look at it as bad, and you're lost. Second student says, here we go. Rabbi Yeshua says, Chaver Tov. And on the flip side, he says, Chaver Ra. A Chaver is a companion. Right? We saw in the first parak the difference between a Chaver is your friend. Your wife, your spouse, your husband is often, but a Chaver, he's your close, intimate, soul-to-soul connected friend. Right? The person who you allow to influence you, to be part of your heart, to guide you, to touch you. Right? A good friend is a guy who's looking after your life. And he'll tell you when you're stupid. He'll tell you when you blow it. He'll tell you, right? You know, a chaver is not a drinking buddy. Your chaver is not the guy that you like to go and play with. That is not a chaver. Right? A chaver is not a guy who has the same interests as you. It's not a guy that you can talk to easily and we both like football or we both like the Dodgers. A chaver is a person who has a soul-to-soul connection to you and is looking after your interests and will tell you when you mess up. He'll also tell you when you're doing good. He'll also drive you to chemo appointments if you need him to. But a chaver is a person who wants good for your life. A chaver who's a good chaver, a good friend, who wants good for you, who's connected to God, who has good values, who's an upstanding person, who's a yashar, best possible thing you can have in life. Says, you want to know how you're going to survive in the world? Find one guy who you can trust, who has the values that you respect, who's connected to Hashem, and hang on. And give him permission to tell you when you're doing right and when you're doing wrong, and to correct you, and to guide you, and to lean on you, and to slap you when you need it. That is what you need. That's the path. Says, nothing else matters. You got a guy sitting next to you who'll keep you straight, you're in good shape. If your guy who's your chaver, who's your close friend, who's your intimate buddy, is a bore, he's a rasha, he's bad, he's mean-spirited, he's evil, you're lost. Right? When your mom told you your friends matter, your friends matter. If you end up befriending someone who's bitter, who's mean, who's a brat, who's a bully, you're lost. You cannot stay connected to God. You cannot, right? You can't do it. If the guy who's got access to your heart and to your mind and to your ear is a jerk, he'll destroy you. So you see, these aren't, the first mission, it was these broad path, right? Philosophical concept. How do you pick a path in life? This is down, go out and see. Here's what the world is. A guy who looks at the world in a bitter way and sees God as stupid will never make it. Right? A guy whose friends are bitter and brutal and evil will never make it. Rabbi Shimon says, Rav Yossi, don't want to forget Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi says, Shochein Tov, a good neighbor. Your environment, your neighborhood, right? Your friend is there when you call him and say, listen, come talk to me, right? But the world that you're hanging out in, and the streets that you walk down, and the guys who live around you, and the general overall milieu that you put yourself in, if it's good and upstanding and wholesome, you'll make it. And if it's destructive, again, he says, you'll never get there. The reason to live in a Torah community is even if you're not close to them, the fact that when you walk down the street on Shabbos and your kids see 70,000 other, 70 other people walking to shul too, and you know that other blocks are people who are living your values, and for the most part you live in a place where it's respected to be honest, where it's respected to be polite and kind and courteous, and people are generally nice guys and they look out for each other and they're friendly to each other and they're helpful to each other, and it's generally you live in a generally uplifting, wholesome, healthy place. He says you'll make it. That's what you need. Live in an uplifting, healthy place. Have nice neighbors, good neighbors, wholesome neighbors. But he says if your neighbors are evil, if you try to make it, I'm a good guy, but I'm going to go live in the last step before Gehenna, right? I think I can live in Times Square or West LA, and make it. There's lots of people who move out of the community because they want a bigger house, fancier house, whatever it is, better school. They want some other thing, and they know they can be a pioneer and hang on to it. It's really tough to be a pioneer and hang on to it. Rav Shimon says, "Haroa et hanolad," a person who sees the result. Roa et hanolad, he sees the vlod, he sees what's going to come from what he does. On the flip side, it's interesting. He says, "Halova ein mashalim," a person who borrows but doesn't pay back. And it's the same thing whether echad halova min ha'adam, kalova min ha'makom. It's the same whether you're borrowing from people or borrowing from God. Right? Your friend wants to borrow money, you'll help him out. You'll sign his loan guarantee. But if he comes and asks, if he doesn't pay it back, and he comes and asks you again, he's now cut off a pathway. Right? If your friend asks you for help and you help them, and they trash you with it, how are you ever going back for help again? Right? Didn't you realize what was going to come of it? There's only so many trillions of dollars the Chinese will lend you before at a certain point they say, no, I don't think so. You know, why don't you call the Brazilians? Right? At a certain point, you can't borrow and not pay it back. Right? A person, he says, the most important thing, what will protect you is to be a ro'at hanolad. If you have clarity, if you see what's going to come from what you do, he says that's the only way to get there. Right? If you're blind to the repercussions of your choices or your actions, it doesn't matter where you live, who you're friends with, what you do, you're sunk. The only guy who'll make it is the guy who thinks about his actions and knows where it's going to take him. And the last is Elazar ben Orach. And he says, Leiv Tov. Be erlich. Be sweet. Have a good heart. It's a much harder thing to get to. But his teacher says, I like what he says, because it includes everything you say. So you can read that two ways. You can read it as saying, well, I just have to do this. I don't have to do any of those. Or you can read it as him saying, no, Leiv Tov means you're all of those, you know. A guy with a good heart looks at the world good. And he hangs out in a good place. And he has good friends. And he thinks about the consequences. But overall, you know, when you ask him, what do you want from your kids? If you had the choice of knowing that your kid was a little bit more scholarly, or your kid was a complete mensch, just a good, open-hearted, loving, giving, kind, helpful, spiritual, uplifted guy, or that he knew more pages, or that he had more money, or that he could pitch a fastball more than 92 miles an hour. Which would you pick? What do you want for your kids? You want your kids to be a mensch, your son to be a mensch. You know, it's interesting, you know, the outside society says, you know, be a man. Right? Manliness. You ever heard the word manliness? Picture in your image, you want to compare the civilizations. Think of the phrases, be a man. Right? Man up. Right? Manliness. Those all picture images, right? Now take the Jewish approach, same word. Menschlichkeit. Right? Be a mensch. Right? You're not looking for your son to be a man. You want your son to be a mensch. Right? You're not trying to teach manliness. You're trying to teach menschlichkeit. He says the most important thing all of this is pushing for, why are we learning all this stuff? Where are we going? Is to turn ourselves into people with good hearts. It's a Leiv Tov. And the worst thing you be is a guy with a bad heart. You just don't care about anyone else. It's just, you know what, your problem is not my problem. You know, suck it up or die, it ain't my problem. So those are the 5 students of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. Their approach of how they're going to bring us forward into the world.